Hello and welcome to tutorial 2 for GDTK stats. In this video we're going to be looking at damage dealers and damage receivers. So what we've done is we've copied over the completed last tutorial and we've gone ahead and added a couple of particle effects and these saws that are going to move back and forth, and we're going to make them hurt us. So the first thing that we're going to do over here is we're going to add a new stat, and we're just going to call that help. And we're going to give it just a maximum of 100 and start it off maxed. And then we're going to need to add a damage receiver. So we'll pull this guy up here, and what we need to give it is the stat that controls our health. So we'll just go ahead and select health there, and now our character is ready to receive damage. So let's go ahead and add some damage dealers. So this guy right here is going to be a spherical damage dealer, and the way that we're doing this is we are going to be setting up raycasts for these three, and for the spinning blades, those are going to be on colliders. So damage dealers can also have their own stats. In this case, we're not going to be using any stats on these, so they're just going to have a blank reference. We're going to leave the layer mask where it is, and we're going to set detection to sphere cast. And as you can see, we've got this sphere right here because we have this visualization turned on. And we'll just go ahead and bring that radius up to 2. And we're going to apply this damage continuously. So as long as we are in there, we are going to be taking damage. So it's going to hit automatically. We could have it be conditional or conditional advanced or manual. And let's take a look at what these items could be, because these are all going to be automatic, but there are things that we could have done. So conditional damage just needs an expression to be true. So if I said 1 equals 1, it would always be true. But if, for example, this did have stats on it and it had attack stat, and we wanted that to be greater or equal to the other's defense, then it would only hit if that number was high enough. There's also a conditional advance, and we can see we get a little extra text here. So what it's telling us is we have a hit base, which is the base that we use to calculate things. So we could put in a constant value, we could put in a stat, we could even do something like we could use the roll function, 1d4, which would do a random between 1 and 4. Or if we did 3d4, that would do random 1 through 4 3 times and then give us the sum of that. So much like rolling a dice, which is why later on we will be covering things like roll modifiers. A hit bonus, we can again do that same thing. We could say like +4, and then the total, which we can use in multiple different places, would be the combination of those two. Now the reason we have those separated out is because you can use them for critical chances as well. So you could have no chance for a critical, which deals extra damage, and you can see that that critical amount only shows up if we have some sort of critical. So if you do have critical hits, then if it hits, it'll only deal the critical amount. Otherwise, it will only deal the normal amount. It will never do the two amounts combined. But if we did a simple chance, we could set it between 0, which is never, and 1, which is 100% of the time. Or we could do an advanced chance. This, again, is an expression or formula that has to equate to be true at the end. So we could do if the base equals 20. So if we rolled 3d4 and the result was 20, which it would never be. In this case, our max would be 12, but we could also have done 1d20. So yeah, this is perfect for making RPGs, tabletop simulators, things like that. But we're not going to be using critical for these, and we're just going to be automatically hitting. And we're going to do a damage of 3. So that's a damage of 3 over the course of a second. Because we have it set to be applies continuously, it will, every time it applies the damage, it will multiply that by time delta time. We could add a status effect if we wanted to. We'll cover status effects and effects on damage dealers later. If we had an audio pool, which we can make very simply by adding in an audio pool, which is part of the GDTK core, which is free, we could send out audio signals whenever we missed or hit or critical hit. For this demo, again, we're just going to apply normal damage. So this guy doesn't need any sort of collider on it because it's only going to be working with a sphere cast. Next, we'll do the same thing over here, and instead we're going to make this be a cube cast, and we can see it right over here starting out. So let's get the extends on this one. Here we go. And it doesn't need to be that tall because it's just as long as we step through it, so we'll make it like 0.2. And again, we'll apply it continuously, and we'll give it a damage 3, automatic hit. Now, the last of the raycast ones is something that we developed specifically with GDTK, and this is a cone cast, or a sphere cone cast. Now, the reason it's a sphere cone cast is obviously we can't just do a cone cast, and we want to be able to do this without having to do any sort of collider, so that we can do things like change our radius and our angle and our range. These are all just debug visualizations. We can put as many steps in here as we want to sort of get a better idea of what's going to happen here. It defaults out to 10. And so we're going to get this set up to be what should be approximately correct for this. Now, the way that this works is it sends out one large sphere cast that is equivalent to the biggest one at the end. If it hits something, then it sends out a second one that is scaled to what it should be at that point in the cone to make sure that it does correctly hit, and that it is at the proper angle to be hit. So again, continuous damage, automatic. Actually, we'll set the damage to, I think 3 is what we're doing for the continuous damages. Let's make sure we did that. Okay. So this isn't a perfect cone, but it's quite close for the way that it is cast. So on these last two here, we are going to go ahead and use damage colliders, but we're going to do them in 2 different ways. So on this one, we, as the name suggests, we're going to do a pass-through where all we have is a box collider that is set to a trigger. And we're going to set this to, again, this is going to be a collider. We're not going to apply damage continuously. We're just going to do one big damage of 10. And then on this one, we're going to have, on the saw blade, we have a non-collider so that it'll push you out. And then a non-trigger, and then a trigger collider on top, so that we can apply the damage. So this will also be 10, and that's all we need to do to get this set up. The last thing that we'll do real quick is we'll actually go and put in a health monitor like we did for stamina. And in fact, let's go back to the player and assign an icon to it the same way we did for stamina. And we'll just go ahead and duplicate these guys out, rename them health icon and health progress bar. And we'll drag them up because I want those ones to be on top. So it's the stamina that will move down here a little bit. Looks like it's probably good. Let's double check it in game view. Okay, that looks good. So we will also change the fill color. We'll go ahead and make that red. And on the health progress bar, it already referenced the new health icon because it was duplicated. So we just now need to change the ID of the stat we're looking at. And we are set. So let's go take some damage. Alright, so we can see it picked up the icon. It's all full up. And we'll let this guy just go ahead and pass through us. There we go. This guy will knock us away if we are hit by him because it's got the standard collider. And we'll check out this cone right here. So you can see I'm taking damage, and then I kind of walk out of the cone and stop taking damage. So again, not perfect, but it's quite close. Same thing with the sphere. You can see it slowly going down because this is, again, going over the course of a second. And there we are in the box collider as well. So that is going to do it for tutorial number 2. In the next tutorial, we're going to be covering global stats, so you can add things like a difficulty level or other item that is shared between all stats. Until then, have a good one. Thank you for joining.